Bonjour CEA CAPA. Je m'appelle Michael, and I am one of the content creators for CEA CAPA this semester. I am staying in Antibes, also known as the French Riviera, and today I wanted to bring you on a deep dive into the excursions that you go on with CEA CAPA. Today's excursion, we're going to be visiting Nice, Èze, and Monaco.
We started off our day by visiting much of the greater city of Nice by bus, just because there is so much to see. Our first site was Masséna Square, given its name by André Masséna, one of Napoleon's famous generals, who was born in Nice. Built in 1844, it's a beautiful Mediterranean-style open courtyard with black and white checkered tiles and vivid red and ochre Italian architecture surrounding it. On the south side of the square is the Fountain of the Sun, with 5 horses as the planets: Mercury, Venus, Earth, Mars, and Saturn, while the centerpiece is Apollo, the Greek god of the sun. The 7 Poles with Kneeling Men is an art installation by Jaume Plensa called Conversation in Nice, which symbolizes the 7 continents of the world coming together in harmony. Next, we kept heading down the boulevard until we turned left at the Tête Carrée, or the square head. Created by Sacha Sassana, the sculpture is 30 meters tall and houses the regional municipal library of Nice. Then we followed the road up to Boulevard de Cimier, where we saw some charming hotels from the Belle Époque, or the beautiful age. For Nice, it was a time when rich people from England would visit during the winter months to enjoy a vacation and would often stay in the hotels. Some of these were the Majestic, the Winter Palace, the Riviera Palace, which was the first hotel in the city with electricity, and finally, the most famous of them all, the Excelsior Regina Hotel. This hotel was built specifically for the Queen Victoria after her dissatisfied stay at the Grand Hotel of Cimier. Work began in 1895 and finished in an astonishing 2 years, meeting all of the Queen's demands, including electricity, plumbing, and central heating. The Queen stayed there 3 times until her death in 1901. During World War I, in 1914, many of the hotels lost business and were subsequently converted into apartments. At the top of the Cimier Hill, we saw an old Roman amphitheater built in 100 BC, which was able to hold gladiator fights to 5,000 spectators, as well as the Cimier Monastery. Once we had made it back down to the center of Nice, we got off the bus and walked into the old city. Here, it feels as if you've been transported back to old Italian times, where the streets are quaint and narrow. A short walk later, we arrived at the Nice Cathedral. It's known for its Baroque style, which used extreme detail and lots of color to awe the viewer. As you look up, the level of decoration increases exponentially. Afterwards, we made our way over to the market, where we were able to get some lunch, try a local snack known as soca, explore the abundance of homemade crafts and foods, and enjoy the view of the beach.
Now we've left Nice and we've made our way over to the village of Èze. And our first stop in the village of Èze is going to be the Fragonard Parfumeur.
Inside, we got an in-depth look into how the perfume is produced. Much of the process still uses traditional techniques and is done by hand. The first step is to collect the materials needed for perfume, which include plants and spices from all over the world. Then, 3 tons of the material are compressed and heated in this machine on the right to concentrate the smells into steam. The steam is funneled into the next machine on the left, where it is cooled and collected. Afterwards, perfume artisans combine the concentrates in precise quantities to create the exact fragrance desired. In the next room, the perfume is poured into bottles or combined with soap and pressed into bars. We couldn't leave Èze without walking through the small alleyways of the old village. This house used to belong to American composer Samuel Barlow, who in 1930 was the first to have running water in the village, and because of that also installed this fountain for the public. The top of the fortress lends itself to a beautiful panoramic view and has a botanical garden with many cacti that don't normally grow in this region.
The next destination on our trip is Monaco. So right behind me is the Prince's Palace. And currently we're standing on La Roche de Monaco, or the Rock of Monaco, which is a very big rock, which is essentially the capital of the Principality of Monaco. So what's interesting about this portion of Monaco is that a lot of this area is actually built on top of the sea. Because Monaco doesn't have a lot of space, they needed to innovate and figure out new ways to build more buildings for the people that are coming in. This region of apartments is one example of that. In this botanical garden, there are a lot of varieties of trees, cacti, and other plants. As well, there are some sculptures like the one behind me right here. This sculpture is called Le Carrefour des Vies by Edouard Marcel Sandoz, and the translation of that is the crossroads of life. And when you look around the statue, you can tell exactly why the sculptor made it this way. On all four sides of the statue, there is a different phase of life, going from young to older, to when the woman is having a baby, and finally when she is very old. As well as being the home of the prince, the rock is also the home of both of the princesses of Monaco. Princess Caroline, whose villa is right behind me, still lives in the villa, while the other villa dedicated to the other princess isn't inhabited by her at the current moment. Behind me here is the famous Oceanography Museum that was built by Prince Rainier back in the day. It's known for using about 2,000 tons of white stone, as you can see behind me, as well as having one of the biggest aquariums in Europe. In the garden, there is also a statue dedicated to Princess Grace Kelly, who was the late princess to Prince Rainier. It's often said that Grace Kelly is the one who made Monaco famous because of her journalism that familiarized the Western world with Monaco's casinos, which is where a lot of Monaco's wealth comes from. Behind me is a part of Monaco called Monte Carlo. And Monte Carlo is where all the casinos are, including the Formula One racetrack that goes right along the coast here. In the background, it's also interesting because you can see three countries. Here's Monaco, that peninsula is France, and that coast all the way in the back is Italy.
We were able to get up close and personal with two of the most infamous turns in all of motorsport, the hairpin at turn 6 and the tunnel at turn 9. What's unique about the Monaco Grand Prix is the drastic difference in speeds between both turns, where turn 6 has an average speed of around 20 miles an hour, in contrast to turn 9 where cars fly through at close to 200. Afterwards, we found ourselves in the Place du Casino, with three famous buildings surrounding us: l'Hôtel de Paris, le Café de Paris, and the biggest one of them all, the Casino de Monte Carlo, where all of the magic happens.